Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. I'm Bruce Delmonico, Assistant Dean for Admissions at the Yale School of Management. It's wonderful to have you participating today. We're thrilled. This is the inaugural event, or the inaugural alumni conversation. We have a whole series of alumni conversations coming up, and I'm thrilled that our first one will be with Hiroshi Jinno, who is a 1990 graduate of the Yale School of Management. Previously, before then, he did his undergraduate at Keio University. He's been in a number of different roles in finance since graduating from Yale SOM, including at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Aozora Bank. And when I met him, actually, we've known each other, I think, over a decade. When I met him, he was the country head for Deutsche Bank in Japan, and now is the chief investment officer for the World Bank based in Tokyo. And we're thrilled that he's agreed to participate and be the inaugural interviewee, I suppose, of this alumni conversation series. So Hiroshi, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Bruce, having me for the very important event of SOM admissions, and particularly for the inaugural session. And I'm very much honored to be part of this session.
That's great. So I'd love to, the purpose of these conversations is just to get to know a little bit more about some of our very prominent, very successful alumni. Let them share a little bit more about themselves, their time both before, during, and after Yale SOM, and a little bit about what we at SOM like to call at Yale like to call SOM stories. We're a very mission-based school, a mission of educating leaders for business and society. It's a multi-sector approach. Our graduates, I think, gravitate towards sort of hard problems that matter and really work in the intersection of the sectors, and to really craft what as I said, what we call SOM stories, and really kind of having impact in a number of different ways. And I think Hiroshi's, it really represents that in terms of the career he's had and the kinds of things he's done in his time since Yale. So I'd love to explore that with you, Hiroshi. I'd love to actually start maybe going a little bit farther back. As I know that, as I said, you graduated from Keio University, and then joined Yale SOM, I think in 1988. I'd love to get a little bit of a sense of maybe what you're doing before Yale and what brought you to the Yale School of Management.
Thank you, Bruce. So I think I was picked for this event was kind of happened to be in line with what SOM wants to be. After graduating Keio University, I joined the oil company, coal oil company, for 6 years. And at that time, Japan was in a transition from importing crude oil and refine it to the petroleum products like gasoline and heavy oil or kerosene, whatever. But government planned to change it to allow importing petroleum products. So Japanese oil industry will have very difficult future from the employees' point of view. But that was 1987. So at that time, it's very difficult for Japanese to change your job one to another. So I thought I would go to US to learn about management and many things. And the reason I picked Yale SOM was a very unique program, which gave students for not only a private sector business, but also public management. So this kind of the fusion of the two different sectors really appealed to me to join SOM. So while I was studying SOM, I was looking for my new career, changing in either investment bank or management consulting. And I finally decided to join Goldman Sachs because I think finance much more appealed to me to be just principal business rather than working for somebody as a consultant from my perspective. So I decided to join financial industry in 1990. And then, I have been in financial industry for 30 years. Time passed very quick. And first 25 years, I was in private sector, and I moved to IFC 5 years ago.
And I'd love to, learn a little bit more about the path you've taken from Goldman Sachs to IFC now. Maybe loop back and talk a little bit more about your time at Yale and dig into that a little bit more. But I'd love to, you've been, as you say, 30 years in the financial sector, both on in the private side, now on the public side. How have things changed over those 30 years? It's got to be that there's markets are not static. So I'd love to get a sense of how you've seen things evolve in your time in finance.
Thank you. Through providing financing or financial advisory, I thought I would be able to help support people by materializing transaction. Having a debt finance, equity finance, or mergers and acquisitions. And I was very much excited about closing transactions and made money to the companies and possible for the company to access to capital markets and the new markets. It was very interesting. And also, I really enjoyed being in the industry. But after 25 years, I thought there would be something I missed while my 25-year career was, my involvement was more for advanced countries like Japan, North America, and Europe, but not much for Asia, Africa, or Latin America. So when I thought about my next career, I just happened to meet the people at the World Bank IFC, and around there are many things which I missed for my past career, which was the really exciting working with people in Asia, Africa, and also the encountering new culture, which I never expected, never thought about, but really appealing to me to work with such developing countries which need our help. But there are a lot of possibility to grow, and there are so many essential business projects, but unfortunately, it's not easy to support from private sector financial institutions. But using development financial institution like a World Bank, IFC could help to make things more bankable, more feasible, to get private sector's involvement in supporting such kind of developing countries. So that's why I decided to change my career based on what I learned from SOM.
That's wonderful. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your time, your current role at the World Bank at IFC. I know the times now are a little more complicated. I think in a typical, in the typical time, you'd probably be doing a good bit of traveling and been to throughout Asia and Africa and South America, elsewhere. That's obviously not the case right now in this particular moment, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what your role currently entails, what kinds of things you're focused on in your current position.
Thank you. My main role is companies like Japanese companies or advanced countries to connect to the local companies in Asia, Africa, or Latin America. And that's why I traveled a lot until this February. And maybe half of my time was traveling to these areas. But now it's really difficult to physically traveling. But I am using this kind of device like a Zoom or Teams and WebEx, whatever, tools available for me to communicate people over there and connecting people between advanced countries and developing countries. And it's difficult, but if there are difficulties, we have to adapt to change ourselves to make something better than actual. So hopefully we are utilizing this kind of tools to connect people, connect business, connect culture between in the various countries, areas to make sure things not stopping, but moving forward, having and also supporting countries in difficult situations.
And no, thank you so much. And I mentioned earlier the idea of the sort of SOM story, kind of the living the mission of educating leaders for business and society. And it seems as though your time, in finance and is so culminating now in your current position have really sort of exemplified that. I would love to get any thoughts you have on some of the sort of leadership lessons you learned from your time at SOM, and certainly at SOM, but certainly in your time since then as well.
Yes, biggest difference from SOM to other business schools focus not only on the private sector or just business management, but incorporating public sector and the idea of public sector's involvement in many cases. So when I was at SOM, there are many unique classes like legal aspect of finance and also the legal issue for the community things. And in order to make your business good, you cannot avoid public sector's involvement. If I quote one example from my career at Deutsche Bank days, we executed one of the largest transactions between Japanese and European companies. But the company had operations in 35 different countries. So of course, we have to negotiate with the sellers, board members, also buyers, board members, but we have to negotiate with the regulators in 35 countries, and most of them are in developing countries. So we have to discuss about the fair trade commission and also the many difficult and inefficient system for the country. So we were very much have a difficulty to discuss with these people, but we have to do it. And fortunately, we were able to convince all the regulators to get the deal done. And then I really recall my past experience at SOM, and okay, in order to make private sector do the business in developing countries, maybe we have to support more for regulators in such companies, starting with the setting up necessary regulations to make sure foreign direct investment is happening, and also in order to bring business to such countries, Japanese companies need local partners in such countries. So I have to know what kind of people are there, what kind of cultures are there. So this kind of mixture of the various things stemmed from my learning experience at the SOM, which had a very diversified student body. Also, the curriculums encouraged me not only focus on your business, but also your surrounding communities, issues, and management.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's wonderful. Thank you for that answer. And it sounds, obviously, having had experience in both the private sector and the public sector, as you're saying, you've seen how how you need to sort of lead and manage differently in different contexts, and what's possible in the private sector, and what you're able to do there is different than what you're able to do in the public sector. The constraints are different. Has it been a difficult transition to go from Deutsche? I think you went from Deutsche to World Bank. Was that a very difficult transition to make, going from that sort of private sector environment to the public sector, and the different sort of challenges and constraints, but also opportunities that exist?
Thank you. It's a very good question. So, transition is not easy, because if you are in the private sector, if you are a decision maker, if you are responsible for some decision making things, it's okay. You can take everything at your risk. But at a public organization like World Bank, one person cannot take all the responsibility. So it's very well organized balance of the check and balance for the decision making process. So it's quite a unique organization, and which has a very public sector system with the private sector mind needed to make transactions. So so this kind of transition was tough for me, but my past experience, which in order to support countries and private sectors in such countries, you have to be sustainable. In order to be sustainable, you have to, your business or project, make certain profit to continue your operation and services to the community. So my experience in the private sector is certainly helped me to change some mind of the people in this organization. And also I changed myself to adapt to the new organization, which is more for servicing for public, and just leaders, managers cannot do things by themselves, but needed to get involved in many different kind of people to make a decision and to make sure to achieve the largest impact on your investment to the community.
Thank you. And that's actually a wonderful point. And you talked about sort of the different ways you need to sort of lead as a manager. And I guess one question, sort of, I don't know if you can control for the change from private sector to public sector, but I imagine over your time, you've sort of changed as a leader yourself. And I wanted to get a sense of like maybe how your leadership style has changed over the years. If you can think about yourself sort of right out of SOM to now, if the way you've managed and the way you've led is different.
Thank you. So, since I took a management role maybe 1998, so I try to be a leader rather than manager. And in order to do so, I was trying to be a role model of the doing transactions, and try to have communications with the people to know them and let them know me, and the cultivating trust between the people. And I try to delegate responsibilities to the people, and try to let them the way what they want to do. And in order to do so, we have to have a really good respect and trust, and if they know me well, and they know if I will take a responsibility once result are not going well, but give them credit. So this kind of respectable and trustworthy relationship between leaders and people are very important. So of course, it's not working always, but many cases, I think this kind of management style is working not only for me, but also for the other occasions. So communication is very important, and my study at SOM for the management for the organization and also the groups and the individual. And those things are different, but you have to understand three different categories could move differently, but you have to monitor how they behave and how you respond to what their activities. So if you know well and by communicating well, I think you will be a good leader to make sure your people happy to work with you.
That's great. Thank you. And I guess sort of projecting forward, obviously I think that's all, obviously sort of critical, the things you talk about in terms of being a successful leader. Do you see, projecting into the future, different skills, different capabilities that leaders will need to have to be successful in the future, and maybe different than has been the case in the past?
Again, situation keeps changing, so you have to be ready to change and adapt to yourself. And agility is very important, and the also decency to the people is very important. Mm-hmm. And the keep in mind and always welcome challenges to overcome, and most importantly, you have to be very honest to the people and to make sure what you want to do and communicate well to the people to give them your vision and guidance toward the direction. So every people can use different routes, but your direction and vision are shared with the people. I think it should be okay. And you have to be very disciplined, but you also require people discipline. But if you give them credit once things are going well, if you are taking responsibility once things are not going well, and you can get trust and respect from the people, and hopefully this kind of things will lead your people in a good direction to make your organization in a successful way. So long story in short, you have to have many things, but your leaders essential things are many, but I would say you can be adaptable for the change and lead the people with your vision is very important.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate that response. And it's always, I hope I didn't put you on the spot. It's always tough to sort of project forward, but I think that was was a sort of great way to sort of connect some of the things you've done and like thinking about the skills that have been most relevant. I just as a little bit of a change in subject, as I'm thinking about sort of Yale SOM's presence in sort of the global presence of the school, connecting to your time at the school and beyond, are you in touch much with either classmates or other alumni, either in Tokyo or elsewhere?
Oh, thank you. So for Japan, we have about 200 alumni in Japan, and we have a well-connected Japan alumni chapter. We usually have summer and winter gatherings. Unfortunately, this time we have to do it through the web, but we have very connected alumni activities, and if someone like admissions office come to have a presentation to the prospective student, I think dozens of alumni are voluntarily attending to the meeting. And also we are missing your international study group to Japan. Every March we host with like for the student with faculties to interacting between current student and alumni in Japan. And also my biggest loss this year is I'm missing 30-year reunion in New Haven. So I heard it's going to be a virtual one next year, so I'm very much excited. And at that time, my class was rather small and 180 people, so maybe half size of the class of current students. But we are very well connected and cohesive student body. And on the one hand, we know each other very well, and on the other hand, we need a little bit critical mass to make influence to the society, community, industry. So I think it's a good 350 class is a good size to know each other well, also to make an impact on the outside of their community to influence by Yale SOM. And also, one of my prides is I still keep MPPM degree. Some students change it to MBA, and currently SOM gives you MBA degree, but I still keep Master of Public and Private Management, which really represent my career path for the last 30 years, and I'm really proud of it.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I know we're right about at the 30-minute mark, and I know I wanted to reserve some time for questions from the participants, and we have had some come in, good number come in, and I would encourage anyone who has additional questions, please feel free to use. I don't remember if it's either the chat or the Q&A function. Use the Q&A function to ask additional questions. We have some already, so I'd love to maybe just ask on behalf of the audience some of the questions that have come in. And I guess one actually touches on something we talked about earlier. I mean, I mentioned the mission of the school, and we talked a little bit about that. So this is something we maybe have discussed a little already. But one question is just what does the Yale SOM's mission of educating leaders for business and society mean to you, and how do you feel as though you fulfilled it during your career, both in the private sector and the public sector?
Yeah, again, the mission of SOM to educate leaders, meant me a lot. And if you are in a difficult situations, I always come back to what I learned from SOM, and Yale SOM at the time was also a transition time, and have some difficult time, because when I joined the SOM, it was not the School of Management, but School of Organization and Management. So from some experience of the transition for the school itself, gave me a lot to manage for the difficult situation to the normal situation, and learning a lot for the basics, not only for the skills of the management like finance, accounting, marketing, but also learned a lot for the organization skills. For my career is a lot, and hope even change the name to School of Management. I hope the tradition and also the mainstream of the idea is educating leaders with a broad point of view, not focus on some technical skills, but also expanding your idea to be open-minded, to learn many things through the people skills and technical skill, and the social skills.
Yeah. No, thank you. And actually, that touched on, there was another question that had come in that I think touched on this. You might already have just, actually, you might have just answered it, but I'll ask it to see if there are maybe, it inspires any additional thoughts, but it actually was, has your experience at Yale SOM sort of inspired you to shift your career from investment banking to the World Bank? Did the people at Yale SOM in the unique classes give you some sense of sort of the desire to make that shift?
Yeah, again, one of the reasons I told you already is what I learned from the mix of the public and private thought would a lot make sense for me to influence to the organization and the society. And also, SOM is a very unique school and with a very, very diversified student body. And usually business school, you can find many of the Wall Street analysts, consulting firm analysts, and blue chip companies, 2-year program graduates or something. But for the SOM, of course, you can find people like that, but also in variety of the background. For my class, we have 2 musicians, maybe 5 teachers, and some professional football players and so on. So, you are not necessary to work directly to the public sector from SOM, but while you are exchanging ideas and thoughts, people from in a different background, will give you more opportunities even after graduating SOM 25 years. So again, I like encourage you to be open-minded. You have a goal for immediate goal after graduation, and so if you want to utilize your technical expertise, maybe you can do it. But after 5 years, maybe you can, or 10 years, you can come back to your original point and what you really want to do, what you really want to influence, what you really want to contribute to the society because you made a lot of money for investing in yourself. So having a study in SOM will give you a lot of flexibility and giving you good eyes for finding new opportunities. So please keep this kind of thing in your mind if you're considering coming to SOM. It's a quite unique school which gives you a lot of opportunities and a different experience from other schools, and also you can use Yale community as a good resource. You learn also after graduating SOM, you can be a part of not only Yale SOM Alumni Club, but also Yale Club, which has a global, great global relationship, also the reach out. So again, this kind of experience gave me to do many things, and not only for private sector, but in the public sector to use my experience and returning my experience to the community or society, which I haven't touched on. That's why I changed my career.
Thank you so much for that answer. And actually, that you there was a question I think you actually sort of perfectly answered about you touched on a number of things there, but specifically about advice you have for early career professionals. And I think you had some excellent points in there in that answer in that regard, which was really just terrific. I would love it. We have a number of questions that have to do with your current work at IFC, and one of them I'd like to ask a couple if we have time. One of them is how do you and IFC view the role of education in helping developing countries build their economies?
Yes, education is also one of the very important missions for World Bank IFC to support. There are very many talented people in the developing countries, but unfortunately, education opportunities are very limited. So one thing is we try to have such kind of children to have basic education at least. Then, if you identify the good talented people, we like to support for them to have middle to higher education to use their talents, and there are some private sectors who are very much interested in investing in the education sector, and so we like to work with such kind of companies and people. Also, due to this Corona-19 pandemic situations, we have to do many of the web education. So this could give such kind of people more opportunity to take education than commuting like 2 hours by walk to school, but you don't have to waste your 4 hour commuting time, but you can access to the website education by using your smartphone or any devices. So 2 things we could do is support for the education system, also support for the IT system to have opportunity for the remote or web education is available to more people.
Thank you so much. Another question that I think touches maybe not a little bit on your work, but also maybe just more just asking you to sort of opine a little. Question about how challenging will the wealth transfer from high net worth wealth to over the next generation be? I don't think I articulated that very well, but it's a question about the challenges of transferring from I guess high net worth wealth to future generations, and what you see the challenges being there. To the extent that's I don't think even the second one was very well articulated. So if you need me to try again, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, let me try to answer best
Okay.
in my best. So issue is the 2 extreme things are happening. 1% of the people has like 40% of the world wealth or something, and the lower 60% people only represent 20% or something. So, this kind of the extreme separation is also the issue, not only for the advanced countries, but for developing countries. So there are so many challenges taken, and to have the more incremental tax installation and the also encourage wealth people to invest in developing countries, and so it cannot happen one day. But what we could do is keep encouraging people and for the investment for more profit oriented. Also encourage them to make a donation to support, not for the just for the government, but also support for the private sector, which are challenging for the difficult task, but essential for the country. Is very important. So we try to make it happen in some day, and hope what we are doing is changing a little bit. But this little thing, continuous little thing to change will be piling up for the big things in the future. So let's stay in a sustainable thing. And what I would encourage you is, if you are in the private sector, try to make yourself best to make some money. And if you have some extra money, please think about investing in difficult situations.
Thank you. We have just a couple minutes left. But maybe ask one or two more questions if that's okay. Um, and these are both maybe a little bit more directed toward you or your personal path. You talked earlier about your ongoing sort of engagement with the school and with the network both in sort of in Japan and beyond, and the ways in which you've continued to engage the school. One question that came in actually has to do with your own career path, and have you ever used the Yale SOM network when making a career change or a job change?
Thank you. So my first job at Goldman Sachs, at that time, Goldman Sachs had their on-campus recruiting. So I had the interview with Yale alumni, Goldman Sachs employees, and eventually I had an interview with New York people. So starting point is interview with Yale alumni. A Goldman Sachs person interviewed me, and from some reason she liked me a lot, so recommended to the management of Goldman Sachs. So that kind of things, I think it's still continue to be on campus and using alumni relationship to have jobs which you like to be. And after this, from time to time, I keep contacting people, and sometimes I am asking to support my friends who went to Yale together, and also someone who graduated after me. So I recruited some of the younger SOM people to like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and I also see many SOM alumni at the World Bank because of the unique nature of the SOM curriculum. And so, it's not necessary to have a direct, recruiting through the Yale alumni, but you can find many alumni interaction at your career change or during your day work, which eventually help you your career development. So maybe some other alumni had a much more different experience recruited directly through the Yale SOM network. I know this kind of things happen quite often. So I really think this alumni network is very important and helpful, not only having fun, but supporting your career path.
Great, thank you so much. We're almost at time. Just one last question I thought was very interesting. I imagine the role you're currently in is very challenging, but also very satisfying. So it's tough to think about, the future necessarily. But there was a question about, where you see your career going next. And actually, there was a specific question about whether you see yourself using your current experience at the IFC to run for public office in Japan. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, either that specific question or more the broader question about your next steps.
Yeah, I don't know what will happen on my next, but eventually I like to keep supporting, helping people, community. So no matter what organization I belong, or I may start up something new, but I really like to be involved in supporting people, and of course get involved more with Yale SOM, alumni admissions, or if necessary, I can support any curriculum or whatever. So I like to be a person, influencer, and supporting to the society, and I like to be satisfied by myself, and also really, wants to keep a pride of SOM graduate with MPPM degree, and to to advertise more for Yale SOM to the public.
Great. Well, we would love that too. I think that's we always appreciate every opportunity to for you to support us, and you've done done it wonderfully over the years. I want to very sincerely thank you for your time today. I know you're incredibly busy. You have a lot going on, but I appreciate your taking the time to share with the audience a little bit about your time at and since SOM. And the ways in which you've used your time at Yale in your career, and just sharing some of the things you've done over the years. It's really we appreciate that you're doing that, and appreciate every opportunity that we've had to interact with you. So thank you so much for your time today, and also just your time in general supporting the school.
Thank you, Bruce, for having me today, and it's great experience for me too. And talk about myself and about the experience at Yale SOM would be very beneficial for me, and hopefully if someone in the audience think about going to back to the school, please consider and apply for Yale SOM to continue to have a good student body to the school, and I guarantee you to have a great experience for 2 years at the SOM. And please feel free, contact me if there's anything I can be of help. Thank you very much for everybody today.
Great, thank you everyone who attended. I hope this was helpful and informative, and we look forward to seeing you at the in the next alumni conversation in December. So thank you for participating. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much for everyone. Have a good day, have a good evening, and have a good night.